Welcome to the Power Book of Podcasts. Unlock your potential with powerful book summaries that inspire personal growth and broaden your understanding of the world. Each week, we explore life-changing ideas, from leadership to mindset strategies to keys for happiness and success. Learn actionable insights to apply in your daily life. Join our growing community of thinkers and seekers. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button now. It's time to supercharge your mind with the Power Book of Podcasts.
Welcome to our deep dive,
Yeah.
into the world of Malala Yousafzai.
Yeah.
Before she became, this global icon for bravery and activism,
Yeah.
we're going way back, using her autobiography, I Am Malala,
Okay.
to understand her life in Pakistan's Swat Valley before the attack.
You know what's really fascinating about this book is the structure.
Oh, yeah?
It starts with the dramatic event.
Right, the shooting.
Exactly, and then she takes us back to her childhood.
Yeah, it's like we're going in reverse.
Yes, and it's only at the very end that she returns back to the present.
It's unusual, right?
It is.
But I think as we unpack her early life, you'll see how this structure makes her story all the more powerful.
Definitely.
And to help us navigate this journey,
Yeah.
we've got an expert with us today
Hello.
in South Asian history and culture.
So excited to be here.
So Malala's book
Yeah.
opens with this detail that really threw me.
Okay.
When she was born, people commiserated with her mother.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were offering condolences.
Right. Instead of congratulations.
I know, it's so striking.
It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, it just highlights how deeply ingrained some of these cultural norms are.
Like, what do you mean?
In Pashtun society, sons,
Okay.
they're seen as the family's strength.
Like they're protectors.
Exactly, their legacy.
Yeah.
They're the protectors. Daughters, on the other hand,
Yeah.
they're often viewed as a liability.
A liability.
Yeah.
It's a very different perspective.
That's a harsh way to think about a child.
It is.
But it speaks to the challenges that women face within this system.
Absolutely.
And then there's this code of honor
Oh, yeah.
that Malala mentions.
Right.
The Pashtunwali.
Pashtunwali.
Like, what is that?
It governs almost every aspect of Pashtun life.
Okay.
It's a complex set of values, but at its core is this concept of nang.
Nung.
Yeah. Think of it as honor,
Okay.
but like on a much deeper level.
Okay.
It's a driving force behind their social interactions, their sense of justice, even how they approach conflict.
So give me an example.
Sure. So let's say someone insults a family member.
Okay.
It's not just a personal slight.
Right.
It's a stain on the entire family's nang.
Yes.
And that demands a response.
Got it.
Sometimes even a violent one to restore that honor.
So maintaining this nang becomes almost like an obsession.
It can be. It can lead to practices like swara, which though outlawed, still persist in some regions.
Swara.
Swara, yeah.
What is that?
Essentially, it's where a girl is given away to another tribe
Oh, wow.
to resolve a dispute, almost like a peace offering.
Really?
Imagine the impact that this has on a young girl being ripped from her family, treated as a bargaining chip
Right.
to appease someone else's honor.
Yeah.
But it's really a stark example of how deeply entrenched these patriarchal structures are.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
But thankfully, it seems like Malala's father, Yousafzai,
Right.
he really pushed back against these norms.
He did.
It's almost like he wanted to rewrite the script for his daughter.
He really, there's this really small detail,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly symbolic.
Right.
Ziauddin added Malala's name to the family tree,
Interesting.
which traditionally only listed men.
Wow.
This wasn't just about acknowledging her existence.
Right.
It was a deliberate act of defiance against a system
Yeah.
that tried to, erase women's contributions.
It's like he was planting a seed,
Yes.
declaring that his daughter would not be defined by these limitations that society placed on her.
And it's fascinating how this connects to Malala's namesake.
Oh, yeah.
The Afghan heroine Malala of Maiwan.
I was wondering about that.
This woman was a warrior, a poet,
Really?
who rallied her people against British forces in the late 19th century.
Wow.
Do you think her parents, in choosing that name,
Right.
had any inkling of the path their own Malala would take?
It makes you wonder.
It does.
It's almost like destiny was woven into her name.
Yeah.
And then there's the Kushal School,
Yes.
founded by Ziauddin.
Right.
Malala practically grew up there,
She did.
surrounded by books and the joy of learning.
She describes toddling into classrooms,
Oh.
mimicking the teachers before she could even properly speak.
But starting a school,
Right.
especially one that welcomed girls,
Yeah.
was no small feat.
It wasn't.
Ziauddin faced immense societal pressure, financial struggles, and even had to navigate a corrupt education system.
Yeah, it was incredibly challenging.
It really puts into perspective the uphill battle he was fighting.
Definitely.
He was going against the grain, challenging those deeply entrenched societal norms
Yes.
that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
And all of this is unfolding
Yes.
against the backdrop of this stunning Swat Valley.
It's almost like Paradise Lost, you
Yeah.
know, as the shadow of the Taliban starts to creep in.
It's this beautiful place.
Right.
And then you have this encroaching darkness
Exactly.
that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear.
It's like watching a storm gather on the horizon,
Oh, yeah.
knowing that everything is about to change.
And that storm takes shape in the figure of Maulana Fazlullah.
Yes, the radio mullah.
His sermons broadcast across the valley
Right.
mark this chilling turn in Malala's world.
Yes.
We go from this idyllic picture
Mm-hmm.
to messages like, contact U.S. for jihad training,
I know.
appearing on buildings.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, it's incredibly unsettling.
Fazlullah's rise was no accident, though.
Right.
He expertly exploited the political landscape,
Okay.
tapping into this climate of fear and uncertainty
Yeah.
that followed events like the Soviet-Afghan War and 9/11.
Right.
Many in Swat were disillusioned with the government,
Okay.
and his message of strict Islamic law
Right.
resonated with those seeking order and stability.
Even if that notion was misguided.
Exactly.
And for women in Swat,
Yeah.
Fazlullah's pronouncements meant an even tighter grip on their lives.
Absolutely. This wasn't just about abstract religious edicts.
Right.
This had very real impact on women's daily existence.
Right.
Fazlullah enforced purdah, the seclusion of women from public life.
Wow.
And of course, famously banned girls from attending school.
Right.
This was a direct attack on their freedom,
Right.
their right to education, their
Wow.
very place in society.
And as all of this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
Malala is grappling with these pronouncements,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it all.
She's just a young girl.
She is.
But you see this spark of defiance in her,
You do.
this refusal to be silenced.
There's this story in the book about her praying for a classmate's pencil
I remember that.
so she could help children living in poverty.
It's such a powerful image.
It is.
Even amidst this, growing darkness,
Mm-hmm.
her empathy shines through.
It does.
It speaks to the values instilled in her by her parents,
Right.
the belief in compassion and the importance of helping others even in the face of adversity.
It shows that her fight wasn't just about education.
Right.
It was about this much broader sense of justice and human dignity.
Absolutely.
And it's clear that her upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
particularly her father's influence, played a huge role in shaping her courage.
Definitely.
Would you say that Ziauddin's approach was typical for fathers in Swat at the time?
Ziauddin was undoubtedly a progressive figure,
Okay.
but it's important to remember that Swat, even with its conservative traditions, had a history of strong women.
Oh, interesting.
There were female teachers,
Right.
doctors, even political figures.
Okay.
So while Ziauddin may have been exceptional in his outspokenness,
Right.
he wasn't operating in a complete vacuum.
So there was already this underlying current of resistance
Yes.
to the more restrictive aspects of Pashtun culture.
Exactly. And it's important to understand this nuance
Okay.
because it helps us see Malala not just as this singular hero,
Mm-hmm.
but as part of a larger movement, a lineage of strong women
Yeah.
fighting for their rights.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah,
It makes her story even more impactful,
it does.
knowing that she's building on the efforts of those who came before her.
Exactly.
But sadly, things in Swat were about to take a very dark turn.
Yeah.
We see the violence escalate dramatically.
Right.
Schools being bombed, the ancient Jahanabad Buddha statue destroyed.
It was a symbol of, the region's rich history.
Yeah.
And they just destroyed it.
And even the assassination of Benazir Bhutto.
Yes, a pivotal figure in Pakistani politics.
It was a time of immense turmoil,
It was.
not just in Swat,
right.
but across Pakistan.
The Pakistani government's attempts at peace deals with the Taliban. They
Right.
repeatedly failed.
Yeah.
And this only emboldened the militants.
It seems like a pattern.
It is.
Negotiation without addressing the root causes of extremism only empowers those who thrive on chaos and fear.
Exactly.
And for Malala, this escalating violence had a very personal impact.
Yes.
With the closing of girls' schools,
Right.
her education, her future, everything she'd fought for
Yeah.
was suddenly in jeopardy.
And yet,
Yeah.
as we'll see in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
this is the moment where Malala's courage truly comes to the forefront.
I can't wait to hear about it.
Instead of retreating into fear, she finds her voice.
Yeah.
And it's a voice that will soon reverberate around the world.
It's almost hard to believe that in the face of such danger, Malala found a way to fight back.
I know. It's incredible.
And she did it with words.
Yes.
This is where her secret diary for the BBC comes in.
Right.
Written under the pseudonym Gul Mackay.
Yeah. It's a fascinating window into life under the Taliban.
It is.
But what's often overlooked is the way Malala captures those everyday moments of resilience.
Yeah.
The humor that people clung to amidst the fear.
Yeah, there's this one anecdote that sticks with me.
Oh, yeah.
A woman wearing a burqa trips and falls in the street
Okay.
and refuses help, saying she wouldn't give Fazlullah the satisfaction of seeing her struggle.
It's a perfect example, isn't it?
It is.
Even in the face of oppression, people found ways to resist,
Yeah.
to poke fun at their oppressors, to maintain a sense of dignity. And Malala's diary did something extraordinary. It brought those stories to the world.
Her voice, so clear and honest,
Yes,
resonated far beyond the Swat Valley.
it did.
It humanized a conflict that was often portrayed in very abstract terms.
Right?
Do you think that's part of what made her message so powerful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She wasn't just talking about, these abstract concepts like freedom or education. She was sharing her own experiences,
Yeah.
her fears, her hopes, her dreams.
Right.
And by doing so, she gave a face to the struggle for girls' education,
Yes.
making it impossible to ignore.
And her courage wasn't limited to her diary.
No.
She started doing interviews appearing on television,
Right.
directly challenging the Taliban's edicts.
Remember that BBC interview where she questions Muslim Khan,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Taliban spokesperson?
Yeah.
And his response was pre-recorded.
I know, it's almost comical.
It is.
If it weren't so chilling.
Right. It speaks volumes about the Taliban's tactics.
Like what?
They relied on propaganda and intimidation, avoiding any real engagement or debate.
Right.
They couldn't counter her arguments.
Yeah.
So they simply tried to control the narrative.
But even as Malala's voice gained momentum, the situation on the ground remained incredibly volatile.
It did.
There was that brief period of supposed peace,
Right.
a deal brokered between the government and Sufi Muhammad.
Yes. Fazlullah's father-in-law.
Do you think there was ever any real hope for peace at that point?
It was a fragile truce from the outset.
Yeah.
The agreement was full of concessions
Okay.
that ultimately strengthened the Taliban's grip on Swat.
Right.
The public flogging of that young woman in the marketplace,
Oh, my God.
captured on video and broadcast globally,
I remember that.
shattered any illusion of stability.
It's a horrifying image,
It is.
a stark reminder of the brutality of life under Taliban rule.
Yes.
But what struck me is that much of the international outrage
Yeah.
seemed focused on the act of flogging itself,
Right.
rather than the wider context of the Taliban's systemic oppression of women.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
The focus on the symptom rather than the disease
Right.
is part of why that peace deal and others like it ultimately failed.
Yeah.
The root causes extremism, the denial of basic human rights, the lack of opportunity.
Right.
Those issues were never truly addressed.
And then came the Army's intervention,
yes.
Operation True Path.
Right. A full-scale military offensive
Wow.
aimed at driving the Taliban out of Swat.
It was a massive undertaking.
It was, and the human cost was enormous.
Yeah.
Thousands of families were displaced, forced to flee their homes,
Right.
seek refuge in makeshift camps.
Wow.
It's important for the listener to understand the scale of this displacement, the trauma inflicted on innocent civilians caught in the crossfire.
Malala and her family were among those displaced.
They were?
She writes so vividly about the fear and uncertainty,
Yes.
the scramble for safety, the desperate search for basic necessities.
It's hard to imagine what that must have been like.
It is.
It's a stark reminder that even in a victory against extremism,
Right.
there are always casualties.
Yeah.
And the psychological scars of displacement,
Right.
of losing your home, your community, your sense of belonging, those wounds can run deep.
And it's incredibly brave that Malala's father chose to stay behind,
You did.
even at great risk to himself,
Yes.
to raise awareness about the plight of those displaced.
It shows the depth of his conviction.
It does.
He understood that even in the midst of conflict, speaking truth to power is essential.
Right.
He knew that the world needed to see the human cost of this fight,
Yeah.
the faces behind the headlines.
And eventually the family was reunited in Peshawar.
Yes.
They were able to return to Swat, hoping for a fresh start.
Right?
only to find their home desecrated, their school vandalized.
It's a heartbreaking moment in the book.
It is.
It's as if the Taliban, even in their absence,
Right.
were determined to leave their mark,
Yeah.
to remind the people of Swat who is really in control.
But even in the face of such devastation,
Yeah.
Malala refuses to be broken.
She's incredible.
This is where we see her really stepping into her role as an activist.
Yeah.
She's invited to Islamabad for a series of workshops
Right.
and meets Shiza Shaheed, who becomes this crucial mentor and friend.
Yeah, Shiza's belief in Malala's potential was a turning point.
It was.
She saw Malala's natural charisma,
Yeah.
her gift for storytelling, and encouraged her to hone those skills
Right.
to connect with a wider audience.
And remember that meeting with Major General Athar Abbas?
Oh, yes, the army spokesperson.
It's a fascinating glimpse into the complex dynamics
Right.
between the military and civil society in Pakistan.
The general presented the SWAT operation as a success,
Right.
but Malala, even as a teenager,
Yeah,
wasn't afraid to challenge his narrative.
she wasn't.
She brought up the human cost, the displacement, the ongoing struggles of those who had returned home.
It shows that she wasn't just willing to speak out against the Taliban, but also to hold her own government accountable.
Exactly.
It's this fearlessness,
Yes.
this willingness to speak truth to power
Yeah.
that makes her so remarkable.
And her activism expands beyond the conflict in Swat.
It does.
She starts speaking out against other injustices,
What?
like the assassination of Salman Taseer,
Oh, right.
the governor of Punjab,
Yeah.
who was killed for defending a Christian woman accused of blasphemy.
That case is a chilling reminder
It is.
of how deeply ingrained religious intolerance can be.
Yes.
And the dangers faced by those who dare to challenge it.
And then there was the killing of Osama bin Laden
Right.
by U.S. Navy SEALs in Abbottabad, Pakistan.
Yeah,
It exposed the deep mistrust between the U.S. and Pakistan
it did.
and raised serious questions about the Pakistani government's complicity in harboring terrorists.
I found Malala's reaction to this event particularly interesting.
Oh, yeah.
She expresses shame
Right.
that such a notorious figure was hiding in her country.
It speaks to her evolving worldview,
It does.
her growing awareness of the complexities of the world beyond SWAT.
She's starting to see that the fight for justice,
Yeah.
for equality, for a better world,
Right.
extends far beyond her own backyard.
And she's willing to grapple with those uncomfortable truths,
Yeah.
even if it means questioning her own country's actions.
And all the while, Malala's fame continues to grow.
It does.
She wins awards, travels internationally, speaks at conferences,
Right.
becomes this global symbol of hope and resilience.
It's an extraordinary journey for someone so young,
It is.
but it's vital to remember that she's still just a teenager,
Right.
navigating the pressures of adolescence
Yeah.
while carrying the weight of the world's expectations on her shoulders.
Which makes her story all the more compelling.
It does.
She's not some untouchable icon.
Yeah.
She's a real person with her own dreams and fears.
Yes.
Her own vulnerabilities.
And it's that that human connection
Yeah,
that makes her message so relatable
it does.
and ultimately so powerful.
But as her fame grows, so do the dangers she faces.
Yeah, that chilling threat from the Taliban published online
Right.
casts a long shadow over everything.
It's a sobering reminder that her fight comes at a tremendous personal cost.
It does.
She's literally risking her life for the right to speak out,
Yes.
the right to education.
And that brings us to the fateful day of the attack.
Wow.
A day that would forever change her life and reverberate around the world.
I remember when the news of the attack broke. It felt like the whole world was just holding its breath,
It did.
waiting to hear if she would survive.
It was a moment that really transcended borders and cultures.
I did.
You know, suddenly this young girl from this remote valley in Pakistan
Yeah.
became a symbol of the struggle for girls' education, for freedom of speech, for resistance against extremism.
And her journey to recovery is nothing short of remarkable.
It's amazing.
Airlifted from Pakistan to the UK.
Right.
She undergoes multiple surgeries, fights off infections, and has to relearn basic skills
Yeah.
like speaking and walking.
It's a testament not only to the skill of the medical teams, but also to Malala's incredible resilience,
Oh, yeah.
her determination.
She refused to be defined by her injuries,
She did.
pushing herself to regain her
To
independence.
reclaim her life.
There was this really poignant moment in the book
Oh, yeah. Tell me.
where she wakes up in the hospital in Birmingham
Okay.
and asks for her school bag.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
It's incredible.
Even after everything she'd endured,
Right.
her thirst for knowledge, her desire to learn, remained undimmed.
It speaks volumes about her character.
It does.
It wasn't just about defiance, you know?
Yeah.
It was about this deep-seated love of learning.
Right.
The Taliban may have tried to silence her,
Right.
but they couldn't extinguish that inner flame.
And throughout her recovery, her family was her constant source of strength.
Absolutely.
Her father's unwavering love and support, her mother's constant prayers.
It highlights the power of family
It does.
in the face of adversity.
And let's not forget the sacrifice they made.
Right.
They left everything behind.
They did.
Their home, their community, their entire lives.
To ensure Malala received the best possible care.
Exactly.
And they faced immense challenges,
Yeah.
adapting to a new culture, a new language.
Right.
Yet they never wavered in their commitment to Malala's well-being.
It makes you realize that Malala's story isn't just about individual courage.
Right.
It's also a testament to the power of family,
Yes.
of the love and support that can help us overcome even the most unimaginable obstacles.
And while Malala healed physically, we have to acknowledge the emotional and psychological trauma of the attack.
Yeah, of course.
She writes about nightmares, flashbacks, moments of fear and uncertainty.
It must have been so difficult.
It's a reminder that healing isn't linear.
Right.
It's a complex process that takes time and requires immense courage.
It's hard to fathom what she went through,
I know.
both physically and emotionally.
Yeah. And then, in the midst of all of this,
Yeah.
she's thrust onto the world stage
Right.
in a way that few teenagers could ever comprehend.
Yeah.
She meets world leaders, gives speeches at the UN,
Right.
becomes this global advocate for girls' education.
It's an amazing transformation.
It is, but what's so inspiring is that throughout this whirlwind of fame and attention, Malala never loses sight of her core message.
Right.
The importance of education, especially for girls.
And the impact of her message is undeniable.
It is the Malala Fund, which she co-founded.
Yes.
Does incredible work to empower girls through education, breaking down barriers,
Right.
creating opportunities for a brighter future.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Malala's world,
Yeah.
what stands out to you most about her story?
For me, it's her unwavering optimism,
Yeah.
her belief in the power of education to transform lives and societies. It's a message that resonates deeply,
Does.
especially in a world often consumed by negativity and despair. Right. Malala reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, hope can endure,
I love that.
and that each of us has the power to create a better world.
So what does all this mean for our listener today? I think Malala's story challenges us to think critically about our own role
Okay.
in the fight for equality and justice.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that education isn't a privilege,
Right.
but a fundamental human right,
Exactly.
and that we all have a responsibility to ensure every child, regardless of gender or circumstance,
Yeah.
has the opportunity to learn and thrive.
It's a call to action, isn't it?
It is.
To look beyond our own immediate surroundings and consider the challenges faced by girls and women around the world.
Yes.
Malala's story shows us that change is possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
Right.
It's up to each of us to find our own voice, to use our own platforms,
Yeah.
however big or small,
Right.
to advocate for a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely. And if a young girl from a remote valley in Pakistan can have such a profound impact,
Yeah.
imagine what we can achieve collectively
Right.
if we all commit to making a difference.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained a deeper understanding of Malala's world, her resilience, and the power of her message.
It's an important story.
And we encourage you to continue exploring her story
Yes,
and the fight for girls' education
absolutely.
long after this deep dive is over.